Here, there are monsters. Written by Amelinda Berube. Copyright 2019. Published by Sourcebooks Fire. As read by Lies. Part 1. Deidre. This land, like a mirror, turns you inward, and you become a forest in a furtive lake. The dark pines of your mind reach downward. You dream in the green of your time. Your memory is a row of sinking pines. Gwendolyn McEwen, Dark Pines Under the Water. 1. July. The name Deidre means stormy, according to Mom's old baby name book. It suits her. She's rail thin and pale as dandelion fluff, and behind her ice-blue eyes there are always tempests brewing. Our parents are perpetually perplexed by her. There are constant strategies, negotiations, teachers' conferences, therapists' appointments, worried, low-voiced conversations down the hall. She's always been the one in tears at the sad movie, the one who wakes up screaming. I'm easier, straightforward, dependable. When they told me we were moving, I said, "Great." It was a no-brainer. Somewhere nobody knew either of us, somewhere to start over. Not that things were likely to be any different for Deidre across the country, or anywhere, really, no matter what our parents told themselves. It doesn't matter how hard you dig your heels in and refuse to grow up. Time marches on with or without you. At 13, she's almost as tall as Mom, all elbows and knees. She refuses to wear anything but dresses, and she leaves her hair unwashed until it's hanging in lank strings, and Mom finally orders her into the shower. She owns a bra, but after the one time last year some losers snapped one of its straps at school, she insisted on going without. We've always been at the same school before. Not this year. Here, middle and high school are firmly separated. Deidre at Hillcrest, me at Lanark Centennial. Mostly it's been a relief, but, though I never let it show, I was afraid for her. She doesn't know how to put on a brave face. Instead of bending in the wind, she snaps like chalk or a flower stem. I'm not exactly a master of camouflage myself, but I can get by, or at least I can now, since I've kicked loose from having to ride to her rescue all the time. I don't know how to teach her how to blend in. I never have. If I wanted to cross to the other side of the street and pretend we weren't related, it's not like it would have been hard. I'm dark and quiet compared to her. Practical, undramatic. I keep my hair cut close to my ears because it's easier, and maybe because she's always refused to cut hers. I've never had much patience for fashion, but at least I wear jeans. On good days, it's a family joke, how opposite we are, and we laugh together at the teachers who claim to see a sisterly resemblance. Our names are about the only things tying us together. My parents' attempt at instilling some sense of family heritage. When you hear sky, the first thing you think about is the clouds, insubstantial, wispy, moody and changeable, like my sister. When I was younger, I got so many vapid compliments that I was annoyed at them for picking it. But Dad explained that sky is a place, an island. If you Google it, you see a place full of crags and stony slopes, rocks that stand unmoved as the sea breaks over them. The green slopes are a thin veneer over hard bone. Riding to her rescue was my job before I ever had to do it in real life. In the kingdoms Deidre invented, I was the Queen of Swords. All the kingdoms were ruled by queens. Deidre was the first, of course. Originally, she was just the queen, which always made me complain, because I got stuck being her subservient knight. But then she discovered tarot cards and adopted the figures from the deck. Queen of Swords, Queen of Wands, Queen of Cups, Queen of Coins. But even those weren't enough to contain her stories. and they spilled over into monarchs visiting from faraway lands, outlines blooming on her map, Queen of Feathers, Queen of Leaves, Queen of Fire, Queen of Sea. There were too many kingdoms to keep track of, even if we stuck to the ones we knew best, the ones where we'd named the roads, the ones with magic systems and long-standing feuds. There were more than a dozen. The others branched off them, not incomplete so much as undiscovered, places we hadn't got around to exploring yet. I preferred to play in big, acting everything out. That way, I got to wield my sword in fight scenes. She loved playing in small, just as much. Barbies made pretty good queens, with their elaborate dresses, but Deidre found them limiting. The most magical they got was plastic fairy wings. She preferred to make the denizens of the kingdoms herself. Clay, popsicle sticks, feathers, felt, whatever. Construction paper silhouettes would do in a pinch, adorned with crowns of tinfoil or pipe cleaner. If the results were misshapen, so much the better. Monsters were way more interesting to Deidre than animals, even talking ones. She built dioramas to house them, decorated with scraps of the river valley, smooth gray stones painted with nail polish, sprigs of pussy willows, peeling sticks glued together to make branching trees or bridges or limbs for magical creatures. Disney princesses and little ceramic figures vied for space with the monstrosities she made herself. Plastic spiders sat on webs woven from acrylic yarn. Pieces from a broken mirror winked out from unexpected corners. Her walls were covered in long scrolls written in a language she'd invented. Papier-mâché masks beckoned with feathers and ribbons, painted maps, some of them corresponding to the places in the dioramas, others a world removed. Deidre's role wasn't fixed. With just the two of us to direct, she spun all the characters out around me. The Queen of Swords was still more like a knight of the realm, really, protecting her from villainy, following her on her epic quests. But since I got to be a queen, and still be a fighter, I accepted that position without dispute. I became sort of a queen errant, too restless for the throne, lending my peerless, martial skills to worthy causes wherever I found them. My kingdom had been attacked and overrun in my absence, I think. It was very tragic. Most of Deidre's stories turned out that way in the end. Sometimes she'd accept my contributions, take an idea and run with it, unwinding all the consequences, but the kingdoms were hers, unquestionably and forever. I liked being the Queen of Swords, towering, fierce, unconquerable, but I was always traveling in Deidre's country. She was all the queens and none of them. She belonged there. And where I belonged, that was more complicated. For 2 months, I crossed days off the calendar with big red X's, counting down to a fresh start. I wouldn't be Psycho Sky after we moved. Away from Deidre, at a different school, I wouldn't have to be. It was a grueling 3-day drive, and we pulled into the neighborhood past 10 o'clock, all of us tired and frazzled, Mog yowling in her carrier, Mom yelling at the GPS. The new house was only a year old, and it stood alone on its street, an island of welcoming yellow light. We ricocheted through it, running from room to take it all in. It didn't take long. Deidre and I would be sharing a room, a prospect she claimed to be excited about. I wasn't so sure. I smiled and nodded for Dad's benefit when he showed me the dank little corner room in the basement that he planned to transform for me. The floor was bare concrete, a low opening in the far wall revealing a dark, spiderwebby crawl space. A ragged rectangle traced in marker across the plastic skin of the insulation would be a window. It looked like something Deidre might have drawn there, pretending it was a magical secret passage. "Nothing to it," Dad said, hugging my shoulders and giving me a reassuring little shake. "Right?" Deidre kept coming back to the tall windows that filled the back wall of the living room and dining rooms. The light from the house vanished across a long, grassy slope, and beyond that, the woods were an undifferentiated wall of shadow, darker than the sky. She sat there looking hungrily out at them, even after Mom and Dad went to bed. While Deidre sat perched by the window, I made midnight fries. Cooking was only going to make the heat more oppressive, but rituals were rituals, and she insisted. The sticky dark pressed up against the glass, and a fan purred in the corner, pushing the air around. I was pulling the tray from the oven when she flapped a hand at me suddenly, her voice an urgent half-whisper. "Turn off the light." "Why? You have to see this." I shut the oven door, scraped my bangs off my forehead. "Is it something real?" I demanded. "I'm not budging for one of your—" "Yes!" she hissed impatiently, her nose pressed up against the screen. "Come on!" I left the fries sizzling on the stovetop, too hot to eat yet anyway, and snapped the light off, feeling my way carefully around the haphazard mountains of moving boxes. Deidre was a spare shadow in the luminous oblong of the window, her hair lifting a little as the fan rotated away from her. "Look," she whispered. Outside, a point of pale green light winked on and off, bobbing erratically, and there, another and another. As my eyes adjusted, the yard became full of them, like a bowl full of stars, stirred and left slowly revolving. Beside me, Deidre's smile was the faintest gleam. "Fairies," she said, and I snorted. "What, fireflies aren't cool enough for you?" "Come on! They're obviously magic." She didn't see me roll my eyes, too caught up in the dancing lights outside. "They're totally fairies." Even after she reluctantly agreed we should go to bed, it was hard to sleep. Without streetlights to dilute it, night here was dense and deep, and it was full of sounds I didn't know. I hadn't expected the air to be different, sluggish, clingy, hot breath on your neck. A room for me was only part of Dad's grand plans for the basement, so at least there would be somewhere cool to retreat to eventually. But the room I shared with Deidre was stifling, even with the windows flung wide open. "Sky," Deidre's whisper slid across the room. "Are you asleep?" "Not anymore," I growled, although I hadn't been. "Oh, sorry." She rolled over, the blankets rustling, sighed. "Are you okay?" I relented. "It's just so dark, you know? It's so different." "Yeah?" Outside the window, beyond the black overhang of the roof, the Milky Way threw a long arm across the sky. "Look, you can see the stars." She wrestled with the blankets for a long minute, flopped down with her pillow at the foot of the bed, making me snort. "There," she said. "Now I can. Do you think they should be fairies too? From another kingdom, maybe?" I ignored her question. "You can't sleep like that." "Sure I can." She lifted her feet, waved them in the air for emphasis. "Why not?" I rolled over, feeling for a cooler spot on the pillow, sticking a leg outside my thin quilt. "Did we move to the Amazon?" I muttered. "It's like breathing soup." "Maybe it'll get better if it rains." "Is that crickets, do you think? That sound?" "I guess. Or frogs, maybe. I'd never heard them before either. I guess it's too cold for them back home." We listened to the singing night in silence for a little while, until I started to think Deidre had gone to sleep. But then she spoke again. "The creek can be the gate to the kingdoms." I could hear her smile in the words. "We could even fish for algae. Remember that?" One time we'd found a stick wedged upright among the river stones, the water chattering around it. Deidre had declared that it marked the way from the ordinary world to ours. She'd twisted it in place, like you'd turn a key, and pulled it free to use as a scepter, since I already had a sword. After a long morning successfully beating back the invading hordes, she'd insisted we leave it behind, a testament to our reign. And after that, we found a new key at every visit and left it pointing skyward from the river. Layers of ritual accumulated around it. You had to walk around it 3 times. You had to swear undying loyalty by wood, stone, water, and bone. Anything done more than once becomes a ritual for Deidre. It's as if she's trying to make reality cooperate through sheer, stubborn force, wearing it down with repetition. I remember the gate, I said eventually, when she made an impatient noise. But fishing for what? How do you fish for algae? That doesn't even make sense. Deidre sprang upright, the pillow falling to the floor unheeded. You don't remember that? She cried. Shh, I hissed. She ignored me and jumped over to my bed, curled up at its end, shoving my feet out of her way. How can you not remember this? I was like 6 years old, and I remember this. Look, you know when we went walking in the valley, that little piece of the river that came under the bridge? Under the blanket, I went tense, something pressing its way up through my memory, rolling over in its sleep. You mean the lagoon? No, no. Deidre thumped her head back against the footboard. It was part of the river, just slower, and really shallow. There was all that tall grass, remember? And it froze solid in the winter? Right. I rolled my shoulders, forced myself to relax. That chattering tributary was the scene of 100 memories. After all, most of them benign. We'd gotten into the worst trouble one time for walking on the ice there. We hadn't been in any danger. We'd punched through the ice with rocks to see how thick it was, and found just the slick riverbed underneath, the barest trickle of water, though, of course, it had been no use telling Mom that. We used to try to catch water bugs there, but it was too hard because they were so fast and tiny, and so Dad gave us sticks and told us to fish for algae. Remember? It came up in these long, gross strings like... She pulled her hand away from her nose and giggled, snorting. Remember? I smiled back in the dark, unevenly. It sounded like something we would do. This is going to be great, Deidre said with a sigh of satisfaction. Her upturned face was a faint, pale oval in the starlight. Imagine, it'll be like if we had the valley all to ourselves, just for us. The valley. Long after Deidre crawled back into her own bed and finally grew still, her breathing evening into sleep, I lay there, listening to the alien chorus in the woods, the memories pulling me along, down the plunge of the ravine, along the bike path that wound down to the river at the bottom, beneath the houses perched at the crests of the hills on either side, silhouetted against the thin clouds. I knew when I'd walked there for the last time, past the furry petals of crocuses in the brown grass, but I'd been back in my dreams, again and again. It was as if I left part of myself behind, as if it were still there, walking through all the places I used to know. They wound out like tree roots to unknowable depths. Maybe that's what it means to put down roots in a place, laying down paths that you can trace with your eyes closed. All the places that make you who you are, all the things you wish you could forget. I had no roots here. The forest had its own depth. It was a sinkhole, bottomless, but we floated on its surface like leaves in water, unanchored. It didn't matter. I told myself over and over. Didn't matter. You could just pull up a plant, set it down in new soil. Roots could be severed. I didn't tell Deidre about the dreams, the footsteps that dogged me, though she'd have understood. I didn't want Deidre to be the one who understood. I'd help Mom plant a new garden. I'd help Dad finish the basement. Left behind in the dark, those roots would disappear eventually, and I'd grow upward toward the light. 2. Officer Ledouce takes pity on me, trailing uselessly around the kitchen, and puts me in charge of making a page for the search. I set it up as dawn starts to show around the edges of the sky. Mom manages to track down a picture on her thumb drive where Deidre's actually smiling. I'm tempted to tell Mom that nobody will recognize her if we post that. She looks so innocent, squinting into the camera in the sun. Her white blonde hair is braided, probably by me, and she's wearing a blue sundress that makes her look about 3 years younger than she is. But in the end, I can't bring myself to say anything, and I post it dutifully. Retweet the police, share posts from the news stations as they start to pick it up. The day turns crisp and pumpkin gold, and the police go on scouring the neighborhood, knocking on doors, asking questions, looking under decks, in sheds, following dogs back and forth across the face of the forest, in and out of the tangle. I close the window, but can't shut out the voices, the barking, the pulse of helicopter blades. Heavy foreign footsteps echo through the house, a counterpoint to Mom's tearful voice. The doorbell rings more constantly than it ever would for trick-or-treaters, heralding a parade of reporters and neighbors bringing food, lasagna, chili, muffins, bread. I'd kind of forgotten that other people live here, that there are actual human beings behind the blank, closed faces of the houses scattered up the hill. We're not even a suburb out here. Exurb, Mom called it once, a tiny constellation of human presence perched on the edge of the swamp. One of the casserole bearers is a boy with long, wheat-colored hair pulled into a messy ponytail, broad-shouldered, in a black and yellow Lanark Centennial athletic jacket. William Wright. He stands waiting on our doorstep, his hands buried in floured oven mitts to carry a big white ceramic dish. I should be glad to see him. I could have summoned him by text any time today if I wanted a shoulder to cry on. That's probably what he's hoping for, a chance to be the hero. The thought makes me want to disappear back down the hall above the foyer, so he'll have to leave his offering there and go away. Before I can act on the impulse, he glances up and meets my eyes through the glass, offers an awkward smile, lifts the casserole apologetically. "Hey," he says when I open the door. "I brought dinner." I don't tell him that he's only the latest in our stream of visitors. He's the first one my age, anyway. "Thanks," I say instead. "Do you mind if I come in? This is just, kind of hot. Where can I—" "Just put it on the stairs, I guess." I stand back to let him in, and he deposits it on the carpeted step, pulls off the silly oven mitts. "I'm really sorry," he says. "About your sister. I hope she's okay." I'm probably giving him the look that makes Deidre roll her eyes. When I slip into it in front of other people, they get shifty and uncomfortable. But William knows it by now. He's teased me about my resting bitch face often enough. Anyway, better stone face than crying. There's no way I'm crying in front of William. "I thought, did you want to talk about it? We don't have to, but—" I shake my head, fold my arms. He returns my stare for a moment, at a loss, then glances back out the window at the giant police trailer filling half the driveway, their mobile headquarters. Officer Leduc explained. Beyond it, the road is lined with vans from the news stations. An ambulance waits off to one side, just in case. Police officers hurry back and forth, and cameramen and neighbors stand around in little knots, ants milling around a nest. "Has this all been here since last night?" Basically. There, I sort of sound human again. It's kind of a circus. "Do they need volunteers or anything to help look?" I don't think so. I don't know. They've got a helicopter, right? And the dogs? He nods, sympathetic. There's a long silence. Flash forward to what I can expect at school as that girl with the missing sister. No one will know what to say, including me. Count on Deidre to ruin everything, leave me cut off, spreading awkward silence like a plague. I can practically hear her sniff of satisfaction. But William's trying, at least. He's here. He's making a gesture. I kind of wish he hadn't. "If there's anything I can do, let me know," he says finally. "I'm around, if you want some company or anything. I'm guessing you're not going to be at Kevin's tonight? I shake my head again. I would rather be just about anywhere other than here, but my presence at the party would be either a total downer or inexcusably weird. I don't need everyone watching me, waiting for me to fall apart. I definitely don't need to fake my way through dealing with Kevin. It's not like he's going to miss me. My tone makes William's eyebrows go up in surprise, though he covers it with an answering shrug. I'm off balance, forgetting the rules. I shouldn't have let that slip, and I fumble for a way to take it back. I can't mess things up with William's friends. My friends, I correct myself, but the idea feels angular and foreign in a way it didn't yesterday, like a stone in my mouth. He's your friend more than mine, is all I come up with after too long a pause. Well, you kind of intimidate him. That's what Sophie said. I sigh. I don't know. You managed to hang out with me without being a douchebag. Somehow. His smile is brief, self-deprecating. Look, forget I said anything, okay? I don't mean to be bitchy. I think you're allowed. And anyway, it's Kevin. He kind of brings it on himself. Yeah, well, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just... Don't worry about it. Seriously. There's another silence. He passes the oven mitts from hand to hand for a moment before meeting my eyes again. Well, I'll get out of your hair. Text me, okay? Sure. I try not to sound too relieved. Thanks, I will. I hope they find her, he says, retreating through the door. Yeah, me too. They haul me upstairs out of hiding so the social worker can talk to all three of us together, to get a picture of the family situation, she says, to get an idea of why this happened. Janelle, as she introduces herself, is an ample, motherly-looking person with a waterfall of black curls, bright red lipstick, and a soft, high voice. My mom looks cold and hard sitting beside her, eyes red-rimmed and haggard, but her back poker straight. You said she was having some troubles, Sarah, Janelle prompts. Is that right? Mom gives a tight little nod. Could you tell me about that? She's always had trouble making friends, Mom says. She and Sky were really close, and that was just all she needed, I guess. I studied the carpet and refused to respond. She didn't quite know how to connect with other kids. She was just so lost in her own little world, really. And lately, well, Sky's been making her own friends, and Deidre kind of felt like she'd been left behind. I kick at the legs of my chair. I'm not listening. This is not my fault. My armor is forged from steel plates. Mom's barbs bounce right off me. Is that how you'd put it, Sky? I mumble an indifferent response. Mom gives an aggrieved little huff, looks away out the window. The learning resource staff at Hillcrest said you'd been in touch about seeking counseling for Deidre? She's always kind of explosive, Dad puts in, and we keep trying to get a handle on it, but we. Mom doesn't raise her voice. Her mouth is a thin line. Oh, Sarah, come on, don't start. Who's the one who always takes time for appointments? Who's the one making the phone calls? We talked about this. Didn't we talk about this? You're the one with an office job. You're the one with the flexibility. All right, let me jump in here, Janelle interrupts. Brent, what is it you do? Drywall. He sighs. With a buddy of mine. And Sarah? I'm a project manager, she says stiffly. For Cambria. It's a tech startup. So you've both been working some pretty intense hours, I guess. Hey, Dad protests. I'm home at 4 to be with the kids. Usually. Sometimes 5, Mom mutters. Sometimes 6. Jesus, Sarah, they're teenagers now. They can look after themselves. They don't need me around to... Dad's words falter and sink under Mom's arctic silence. He scrubs a hand over his face. And how do you feel about that, Sky? They all turn to look at me. I fold my arms. Perfectly fine. I can look after myself. Dad's shoulders take on a defeated slouch, and Mom bristles all over again, glaring at me. I'm done with this. I shove my chair back and stalk from the kitchen. Behind me, Janelle goes on trying to play referee while they snipe at each other. My room is as much of a refuge as I've got. Quiet and sunny, my plants filling one wall on the stand Dad built for me. But even here, there's no escape. When I fling myself onto the bed and pull out my phone, there's a million notifications, all about Deidre. Sympathy, people asking if there's anything they can do. Sophie has texted, OMG, are you okay? And I don't know how to answer that, so I don't. I scroll through the group chat about Kevin's party instead. Who's going, has what? I hadn't decided on a costume yet. I bet they're too hip to do Halloween for real. It's probably all ironic accessories. I was waiting to see what Sophie and Bethany were planning. Not that it matters now. I don't bother to answer the knock at my door. So after a pause, the knock comes again. Sky? It's not Mom. Janelle? Would this be a good time to talk? Whatever. It's not like I have much of a choice. I don't look up from my phone as she opens the door. Wow, she says. You must have quite the green thumb. I guess. I grew some beans from seed in 3rd grade for science class, and ever since, I've been going nonstop, taking cuttings from every houseplant I could lay hands on. My collection is getting pretty impressive, a balancing act of height and texture, long trailing vines arranged just so, framing the others. Orchids, even. Janelle turns her smile on me like a searchlight, and I wince. A client gave me one of these once, and I killed it stone dead. Is there a secret to it? Not really. Does she think she's being subtle? Get the sulky teenager talking. Get her to open up. Well, I can play along with that. All you have to do is soak them in a sinkful of water for half an hour every week, and then leave them alone. I thought you were supposed to keep them in a tray of water. So they had the humidity? No, they hate that. Like, they're from the rainforest, but they grow in these little hollows in the trees, right? Places that fill up with water every now and again, and then drain right out. Outside my window, the door to the garage creaks open, slams shut. Mom stalks out to the sad, straggly patch of the garden under the apple tree with a shovel, stabs it into the ground. Well, you obviously really know your plants. Do you garden with your mom? Sometimes. It's pretty much the only thing we have in common. I was her right-hand man in taming the masterful waterfalls of color she'd orchestrated at our old house. I know more botanical names than she does. She looks at garden magazines for the pictures. I like the Latin words. I found a website that shows you how to pronounce them even. You can click a button and listen to measured female voices saying, Abela, Stephanandra, Galanthus, Ludicia, Aracuria, Camea dorea. They're like an incantation. The garden was where I was most at home with Mom. When she comes up for air between all-nighters at work, she throws herself into other projects. Dad is the muscle in our house, the one who builds and fixes things, eventually. But it's Mom who makes things happen. Most of the time, trying to help her with something, to be companionable, only slows her down. Her barely concealed impatience is sharp as any rebuke. Back at our old house, at least in the garden, there was space for me too. But it's different here, like everything else. What about Deidre? Janelle says delicately. What did you two have in common? I scowl. Nothing. Nothing at all. She fingers the shiny leaves of the philodendron draped over the shelf. You know, I'm the oldest of 4 sisters. I know exactly how big of a pain they can be, even when you love them. I look away. This is the part where I'm supposed to open up, I suppose. Spill my guts, confess my sins. She's trying to earn my trust, hoping I'll reward her with information. Did you ever wish you were an only child? I ask, still looking at the wall. I think everyone with siblings wishes that sometimes, but not everyone gets their wish. She sits beside me on the bed. You feel responsible for what happened? I should have been awake, is all I say. Are you often the one looking out for Deidre? I'm the only one. If that comes out a little more forcefully than I meant it to, well, that's fine. It's true. I don't understand why she's like this. It's like she can't even see herself in the mirror. And people used to talk about her all the time. At school. They did more than talk, but I'm not going there. It's an awkward age, Janelle offers. Growing up is hard sometimes. I'm sure you had your own bumps in the road. That's one way of putting it. I hunched my shoulders against the thought. Awkward. Whatever. She makes it awkward. She makes herself a target. She just refuses to grow up. It makes no fucking sense. It's like she's doing it on purpose. How many times do you have to rescue someone before they figure out how to save themselves? I bite the sentence short. She's getting to me. Some things just take time, Janelle says. Right? Everything grows. I don't answer, and she sighs and stands. Here's my card, she says. You call me any time you want to talk, okay? Any time. And I really mean that. I wait until she's closed the door behind her, and then I shred the card into little pieces and throw it in the trash. That went pretty well, all things considered. I got through it. I didn't let anything slip. I told her what she wanted to hear. So why do I feel like crying? Outside, Mom is still attacking the sad remains of the garden. I watch as she levers up sticky clumps of wet earth, turns them over. It refuses to even crumble, and she has to hack every shovelful apart. You could probably make pottery with it. She hasn't bothered with it since a month after we arrived, when the rose bushes she planted withered in the clay and the deer cropped everything else. From the bee balm to the irises to the nasturtiums, right down to the ground, leaving only ragged bits of stem behind. Everything grows. Right. Not here. It doesn't. This preview has been created for you by Lies and Scandal Lit. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more quality book previews. Thank you.